Today I'm going to try 5 different ways of getting a panorama, and I want to see which one's best. There are a few different ways to get a panorama, and I'm going to test them to see which one produces the best results, from the auto function that's available in some older cameras to a specialized tripod head. I want to know if it's worth using the specialized bits of equipment, or if I can just wing it like I do when I'm out hiking and I don't have my tripod. So I'll show you the 5 different ways that I've shot the same panorama, and then we'll see what the actual differences are when I import them into Lightroom and stitch them all together. On certain cameras, there's a pano setting, and I'm going to start with this one. It's on my mode dial on the RX10 Mark III, so I'll put it in that setting and see what happens. With this way, ISO is in auto, and you do have control over your exposure compensation, so you can set the exposure. However, it does keep shooting until the end of the pano. Now this is very much like shooting a pano in your phone. You start on one side, you press the shutter button, and then work your way round through the pano. It's a really easy and simple way to do it. However, the camera does just produce a JPEG file. You won't get a RAW file out of your camera when shooting a pano like this. Now this second way is the laziest way to shoot a pano. You take one image and then crop it in post afterwards. Now this can work, especially if you're just uploading it to social media, but you are throwing away so many pixels, and there are much better ways to do it. If you end up wanting to print the photograph, it will start to look pixelated really quickly. This next way is a little bit lazy, but when I'm hiking, I do this, and I've had some really good results from it. So I want to see whether shooting it this way has some downsides compared to using a Nodal Pano Head or using your tripod. If I can get better results shooting it a different way, I'll probably start doing that after doing this test. But that's why I'm doing this test, to find out which way is best. All I do is put everything in manual, making sure I'm not blowing out any of the highlights or crushing those shadows. Then I get focus, I set it to manual focus and take each shot one by one, stopping at each point. I just make sure I have enough overlap between each shot so Lightroom will blend them together successfully. And this is the key with this technique. As long as Lightroom has enough of an overlap, it should blend them together well. Now the one thing to keep an eye on is the horizon. If you get it out, you'll have to crop in on the shot, losing a lot of those pixels around the edge. Or the horizon might bow a little bit, depending on which projection you use in Lightroom. The next way to do it is on a tripod. The first thing you need to do is make sure the base of your tripod is level. I did go over a little gadget that you can get that sits in between your tripod and the tripod head a while back. If you haven't seen that video yet, click on the eye in the corner and that will take you to that little review that I did. Also, with this way of shooting them, you do need a tripod head with a separate pan tension knob. With my old man Frotto tripod head, everything is controlled by this one knob on the side, so this technique isn't possible with that Manfrotto tripod head. The one I have from K&F does have this, so I can set the horizon with the ball head, lock it off, and then loosen the pan tension knob. Then I can rotate my camera wherever I want. All I have to do is make sure the base of that tripod head is level. One other good thing about this is it has angle marks on it. So with a little bit of planning, I can work out the angle at which I need to take each shot. So like with shooting handheld, I'll set the exposure to manual, making sure there are no highlights clipped or shadows crossed. I then get focus, switch to manual focus, and then take the shots through the pano. All you need to do is make sure you stop at each point, lock the tripod off, and then get enough of an overlap between each shot so Lightroom will stitch them together properly. I wasn't using a filter to save time, but the beauty with this way is that you can use a filter and really long exposures as you're using a tripod. Then you'd also use the self timer so you're not touching the camera when that shutter is open. A Nodal Pano Head is a specialized bit of kit that enables you to set the nodal point with your camera and your lens when you're moving through the panorama. If you just rotate your camera on your tripod head like I did in point 4, what will happen is the parallax effect will take place, and it will make things shift differently in your frame depending on which way you're pointing your camera. So the camera is pivoting at the sensor, not along the lens. So this is why in that last example, the guitar head moved just slightly differently compared to the TV and the light in the background. In this example, I've put the camera on the Nodal Pan head and I've put it in the right position. This time there is no change in how the image looks, so the guitar head stays in exactly the same position compared with the TV and the light in the background, no matter which way I point the camera. And this is the point of this specialized head. It keeps everything looking the same between shots. This means that Lightroom will have a much easier time stitching the images together. At the moment I only have the panning nodal head, but you can get the one that has the tilt one as well. And with this, in theory, you could get a 360 image with this system. But for now, I'm keeping things simple with just a panning nodal head. One thing to note with this one, where you're just panning, you need to keep it level. So I'll tip the camera on its side in the portrait mode, and this should give me enough reach top to bottom. All I do is level up the head and then set the camera to the nodal point. I know with my 25mm lens on the A7 III with this nodal plate, if I set it at 94mm, it's about right for that pivot point. Now this nodal point does change depending on what lens and camera combination you're using. All you need to do is set it up like I did with two static points in the frame, one closer to the camera and then one further away. And then make sure they don't move relative to each other when you do pan the camera. Then I'll set the increments with this lower panning part. With the 25mm lens in that portrait mode, the 15-degree stops work well. What this unit does is have ball bearings with measured angles of rotation. Then you can set it to different points so it will click into place at even angles. This just makes it easier and quicker to get evenly spaced shots through your pano. With the first way, where the camera produces a pano, this is ready to go out of camera. For the second way, you just need to crop the top and the bottom of that image to get the aspect ratio you want. But with the last three ways, you will have to stitch them together in Lightroom. Now, if you don't know how to stitch them together in Lightroom, just select all of the images from one pano, right-click, click on Photo Merge and Panorama, and let the computer produce a preview. Then you choose a projection and then build the pano. Depending on your computer, it might take a while, but it should produce a good pano. So I've got them onto my laptop and I've processed them all, and I've just got those 5 panos just to have a look to see what's different between each one of them. With the first one, with the RX10, where it was basically like where you shoot it in your mobile phone, it really has cropped in the image quite a lot. When I was shooting it, there was a little bit of space above this building and below there in the reflection, so it has cropped in on it a lot. And also, if we zoom in to 100%, it's a little bit blurry in this middle section. It's almost like it's doubled up a bit on this bit. Whereas say the building, that looks quite clear. And then over here, the buildings are quite clear as well. So at this point, it did struggle a little bit. It's also quite thin and long as well. Now, one other thing I did notice, and I'll just show you with one of the other ones, a few of them didn't process it completely, so it chopped off a little bit on the end. So it's not the best way to shoot a pano. But if you're in a rush and you have this feature on your camera, it does work quite well. Now, if you look at the lazy way of doing it, where you literally take one shot and then crop it top and bottom, if we look at the crop, you can see I've just chopped it down. If we look at the resolution, it's 5,974 pixels by 2,201 pixels. So it's a decent amount of pixels, but I think if you blew this up too much, you would start to see those pixels. But it did take a decent image. So if you're in a real rush, this is one way to get a pano. You do lose a lot of pixels top and bottom, but it does produce an okay pano. Now we're on to the third one, where I literally shot it handheld, stopping at each point to take a photo and then blending them together. If we look at the resolution, this is much, much higher. It's over 12,000 by 5,000 pixels, so loads of resolution. You could blow this one up to a huge image. Now if we zoom in on it, you can see there's lots and lots of detail in this, and I can't see where it's blended the shots together. What you'll sometimes find if you have lots of straight lines in the image that you want to take, when you do stitch it together, sometimes those straight lines will have steps in it. So that's one thing to look for. Because there's a lot of random detail in this shot that I've taken, it's harder to see those points where it's stitched together. But it has produced a really good image. With this next one, I think it was starting to clear up a little bit and the sun was starting to break through the clouds, so it did start to brighten up the image. But again, if we zoom in, you can see again there's lots of detail in this shot. Again, it's around about 13,000 by 5,000 pixels, so loads of resolution. I'm just having a look for the stitching points, but again, I can't see those stitching points. Now onto the final image. The sun really did come out, so it's brightened up the shot a lot, but I also did it with a 10-stop filter. So this dropped my shutter speed down to 4 seconds, which we can see up here. Again, there's loads of detail in this shot, around about 12,000 by 5,000 pixels. So again, it's a huge pano. But to be honest, apart from what the filter has done to the image, I'm not seeing much difference between this and the handheld shot. Obviously with that filter, it's kind of smoothed out the water a little bit and it's given a really nice reflection. And also there's a little bit of blur in the trees where the wind has been blowing the leaves around a little bit. Obviously, because the sun's out, this is a lot brighter and there's a lot more color and contrast in that color. But apart from that, there's not that much difference. And I didn't notice this at the time, but in taking this, you can see how slow the monitor lizards are. I think it's a monitor lizard. If it's something different, let me know in the comments below. And he's not really blurred at all, so obviously he's just sat there chilling out. But after going through these images, there's not that much difference between shooting from a Nodal Pano Head and shooting from a tripod to shooting a pano handheld. Now, do you shoot panos? If you do, let me know in the comments below how you shoot them. It'll be interesting to know how many people do it like I do when I'm hiking it by winging it and taking each shot and then stitching them together, or how many of you use a Nodal Pano Head. Let me know in the comments below. Now, if you like this video, try this one next. Or if you want to binge watch a load of photography tutorials, click down here. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe for weekly videos and tutorials in photography and videography. I'll see you next time.